this is reading week, right, or literacy week, or what's this week?
Read Across America.
Read Across America. So we're going to read a book today called The Sneetches by Dr. Seuss. Snitches or Sneetches?
Sneetches. It's the Sneetches.
I think Sneetches is the way, but Snitches could work too. But now, this is I'm Rabbi Feinstein. Some of you remember me. When you were small and cute, you used to come to me, and now you're big and funny looking. But it's cool. Hey, good morning, Boker Tov. So anybody know this story? Anybody remember Dr. Seuss when you were little?
Yeah.
Here's the cool thing about Dr. Seuss. So first of all, what was his real name? Anybody know?
Fred.
What?
Edward.
Ted, actually. Right? Yeah, he was a writer and an illustrator. He started out doing advertising, and then he would make these funny drawings. He did all the drawings himself and wrote all the words himself. And his books are really wonderful. But here's the important thing about Dr. Seuss books. When you first read them, you think, oh, this is a kid's book. This is a book for little kids. It's a goofy, silly, funny story. He uses funny words. He makes up words all the time. And he has these adorably funny pictures, right? The first time you read his story, you say, hey, that's a funny story for kids. The second time you read the story, you say, wait a minute. He's trying to tell me something. He's using a kiddie story in order to tell me a big grown-up idea. Sometimes the best way to tell a grown-up idea is with a little kid's story. How come? How come a story way is the best way to tell a big, complicated idea?
Because it's in simple little words, and if adults have chosen, they're already reading it to their children.
Yeah. So there's two reasons. So you said two reasons. Both of them are really good. Number one, right, it's in simpler words, right? If I tell you I'm going to tell you a story about discrimination, prejudice, and hate, you say, oh, that's a scary story. But if I tell you I want to tell you the Sneetches, oh, that's cool. And the second thing is because it's hard to get grown-ups to read stuff. Let me tell you this, okay? But if you can put it in a kiddie story that they have to read to their kids, they're going to read it anyway. That's exactly right. Okay, why else do you think that telling a big idea in simple stories is a better way to do it? Anybody else have an idea? Guess what? Yeah.
So that people can see the general idea more obviously.
I think that, yes, that's actually wonderfully put. People can see it, right? If I tell you I'm going to talk about, look, in this case, it's about discrimination. It's a big word. That's a big thing, and it's hard to see that. But if I give you a story like this, you're going to see it, because he really does a beautiful job of helping us see it. So lots and lots of Dr. Seuss stories are stories about big ideas, but put into kiddie stories. And this is one of them, and this is one of my favorites. Okay? So let's take a look together. Are you ready? Are we all good?
Yeah.
So let's pretend you're all little kids again. Can we pretend you're all little kids again?
Yeah.
Right? Sneetches. I love it. Now the star belly Sneetches had bellies with stars, but the plain belly Sneetches had none upon theirs. Those stars weren't so big, they were really so small, you might think such a thing wouldn't matter at all. So we have two kinds of Sneetches. What are the two kinds of Sneetches? Star belly Sneetches and plain belly Sneetches. Does that matter?
No.
Let's find out. But because they had stars, all the star belly Sneetches would brag, we're the best kind of Sneetches on the beaches. With their snoots in the air, they would sniff and they'd snort. We'll have nothing to do with the plain belly sort. And whenever they met some, whenever they're out walking, they'd hike right on past them without even talking. When the star-bellied children went out to play ball, could a plain belly get into the game? Not at all. You could only play if your bellies had stars, and the plain-bellied children had none upon theirs. When the star-bellied Sneetches had Frankfurter roasts, or picnics or parties or marshmallow toasts, They never invited the plain belly sneetches. They left them out cold in the dark on the beaches. They kept them away, never let them come near. And that's how they treated them year after year. Getting the picture here?
Discrimination.
Yeah. Then one day, it seems, while the plain belly sneetches were moping and doping alone on the beaches, just sitting there wishing their bellies had stars, a stranger zipped up in the strangest of cars. "My friends," he announced in a voice clear and keen, "my name is Sylvester McMonkey McBean, and I've heard that your troubles, I've heard you're unhappy, that I can fix that. I'm the fix-it-up chappie. I've come here to help you. I have what you need, and my prices are low, and I work with great speed, and my work is 100% guaranteed." Then quickly Sylvester McMonkey McBean put together a very peculiar machine. And he said, you want stars like a star-belly sneetch? My friends, you can have them for $3 each. You just pay me your money and hop right aboard. So they clambered inside, and the big machine roared, and it clonked, and it bonked, and it jerked, and it burked, and it bopped them about. And the thing really worked. When the plain belly sneetches popped out, they had stars. They actually did. They had stars upon theirs. Then they yelled at the ones who had stars at the start, "Hey, we're exactly like you. You can't tell us apart. We're all just the same. Now, you snooty old smarties, now we can come to your Frankfurter parties." "Good grief," groaned the ones who had stars at the first. "We're still the best sneetches, and they are the worst. But now, how in the world will we know," they all frowned, "if which kind is what, and the other way round?"
They're gonna.
Then up came McBean with a very sly wink, and he said, "Things are not quite as bad as you think. So you don't know who's who. That's perfectly true. But come with me, friends. Do you know what I'll do? I'll make you again the best sneetches on beaches, and all it will cost is $10 eaches."
He's getting a lot of money.
What? You think? "Belly stars are no longer in style," said McBean. "What you need is a trip through my star-off machine. This wondrous contraction will take off your stars so you won't look like sneetches who have them on theirs." And that handy machine worked very precisely, removed all the stars from their tummies quite nicely. Then with snoots in the air, they paraded about, and they opened their beaks, and they let out a shout. "Ah, we know who is who. Now there isn't a doubt. We're the best kind of sneetches, as sneetches without." Then, of course, those with stars got frightfully bad. To be wearing a star now was frightfully bad. Then, of course, old Sylvester McMonkey McBean invited them into his star-off machine. Then, of course, from then on, as you probably guess, things got into a really horribly mess. Guess what happened next? Guess what happened next? You see the two machines, right?
Wait.
See, you see the two machines? He's got a star-off machine and a star-on machine, right?
They're all going to be the same.
And all the rest of that day, on those wild, screaming beaches, the fix-it-up chappie kept fixing up sneetches. That's a great line. Off again, on again, in again, out again. Through the machines, they race round around again, changing the stars every minute or two. They kept paying money. They kept running through. until neither the plane nor the star bellies knew whether this one was that one, or one was this one, or which one was what one, or what one was who. What's this story about? Before I give you the end of the story, let's stop. What's the story about? Go ahead.
Racism.
Is it about racism?
Yeah.
It's in it. So tell me what the story says about racism. What is racism?
It's when you're discriminating against a gender or religion.
It's when you discriminate against someone based on what?
Color.
Your gender or religion.
Could be gender, religion, color.
Color.
According to Dr. Seuss, what is it?
Stars.
It's you pick one thing. Is that one thing important?
To you, maybe.
What? You take one thing and you say, I'm going to reduce you to that one thing. Right? You're either a star or you're not a star. Right? So that's one way. This is a parable about racism. Okay? Yes, please.
It reminds me of the Holocaust.
Why?
With the stars.
That's very interesting, isn't it? Right? Dr. Seuss was Dr. Ted Heisel, the guy who was Dr. Seuss. He was a soldier in the war, and he saw the Holocaust up close. So the idea that I define you and make you into, you're just a Jew, and I make you put a star on, right? And the better people have no stars or yes stars, no stars. We started, right? We started identifying that person with just that one thing.
I didn't even think about that to start.
Yeah,
Wow. Good job.
yeah, really interesting. Yes, please.
I think it's like referring to white people and black people. Like the white people are always like, "Oh, I'm better than you" and stuff, and I guess the black people try to kind of change or something.
Yeah, yeah. So
And
white
they
people say to
realize
black
that
people, you're inferior. So black people say, I'll try to be more white.
And then,
Right.
then they realize I'm good just the way I am.
Well, no, before we get to that, then you switch it and you say, now being black is cool, and everybody wants to go back the other way, right? You see how that, because is there anything about having a star that makes you better than having no star? Is there anything about being white that has anything to do with whether you're imaginative, creative, loving, good, kind, wonderful, or anything about black? It's all completely silly, right? Yes?
And like how what the Star Bellies teachers, like they were playing ball and they wouldn't let the ones without stars play.
What
It's
you
like
call- what is that?
Like Martin.
What do you call
Luther King.
that?
Excluded.
That's discrimination.
Segregation.
That's discriminating, right. I'm not gonna let you in because you're not like me. Right?
Nathan, what did you just say?
One thing at a time. So I want
Segregation?
segregation means what?
Means like separation from like different people, segregation, like kind of separating people just by who they are,
Okay. Well, no, not by who they are,
by what they look like.
by one characteristic. If I said all the blue-eyed kids on this side of the room and all the brown-eyed kids on this side of the room, and I treated all the blue-eyed kids better than the brown-eyed kids. Okay? All the right-handed kids over here, all the left-handed kids over here. Right? If I just pick one characteristic and say, that's what you are, and I'm going to assign superiority and inferiority, up and down, in and out, to that one characteristic. You have it exactly right. Do you want to add something?
Equality, the book reminded me about, like, not everybody was equal.
Yeah. This is about the way we make people unequal based on what?
Based on, like, if they had a star on their belly.
Yeah.
One characteristic.
Now, are there characteristics that are legitimate, that are okay to not discriminate, but at least to sort people out? There are some of us who are really good at math, and some of us who aren't. Right?
Yeah.
There's some of us who are really good at sports, and some of us who aren't. There's some of us who are really good at computers, and some of us who aren't. Right? There's some of us who are really good at cutting hair. Right? I have a doctoral degree from a big university, but you don't want me cutting your hair. You want to go to my friend Jordan, who's a terrific barber. Right? We do have different abilities, but if you really search hard, what do you discover about people? Everybody's good at something. Right? Everybody's gifted at something. Most everybody has something they can, right? You just have to take the patience to find out. Let's take one more. I want to take that whole idea of racism, discrimination, prejudice, that's in here. I want to take one more thing. I want to look at one more thing. Let's look at a different thing, right? Anybody ever said, you're not good enough? Anyone ever felt that way, by the way? I'm not really good at this. I'm not good enough. Anyway, I bet at some point or other everybody's felt that, right? I'm too tall. I'm too short. My nose is too big. My eyebrows are too big. My elbows are too pointy. My feet are too funny. My belly button is the wrong kind. Anyone ever felt like that? Everyone ever felt like, right, there's something about me which isn't right? And you can become very, you know what the word is, self-conscious? You think everyone's staring at my eyebrows, my nose, my lips, my belly button, my toes, my elbows, right, my tush, my whatever. Everyone's staring, and if only I had a better, fill in the blank, earlobe, I would be beautiful, perfect, wonderful, accepted, and loved. You ever hear that idea someplace?
Yeah.
Where do you hear that idea? You want to help me with that? Where do you hear that idea a lot?
What do you mean by that?
You ever hear that idea?
Yeah.
Anyone ever gone to the mall
Yeah.
and seen kids buying stuff?
Yeah.
And if you really look carefully, what are they really buying?
Clothes.
Why are they buying a lot of clothes?
To make them feel like they're rich.
Say to make them feel like they're what?
Rich and valuable.
Yeah, it's not rich. It's the second thing. Value. That's perfect. I think everybody wants to feel like I'm okay. And then comes along Sylvester McMonkey McBean, and what does he say to you? Give me your money, and I'll give you something that will make you feel okay. Right? I'll sell you okayness. Right? I'll sell you clothes, I'll sell you jewelry, I'll sell you a hairstyle, I'll sell you a phone, I'll sell you a, right? You ever have that idea that sometimes those people at the mall who are so crazy about buying stuff, they're not really buying clothes or jewelry. What are they really buying? They're buying, I want to feel good about myself. I want to feel included, right? I want to feel like I'm okay. I want to feel like I'm one of the best. And I can't feel that way by myself, so what do I need? These really expensive jeans. And there is Sylvester McMonkey McBean. And what is he doing? What's his role in this? He's taking your money and giving you, because he's promising you what? You'll be okay. He's selling you okayness. And why is it silly? I'll be right with you. Why is it silly? Tell me why it's silly. Say it again. Because you're fine the way you are. You were just fine the way you were. You're feeling okay does not come from your jeans or your shoes or your jewelry or your hair or your phone or your car. There's a TV commercial that was played on the Super Bowl about a guy, and he bought this really expensive car because he figured now that he had this expensive car, I'll be okay. You think a car can make you okay?
No.
I mean, look, it's fun to have a sweet car. I mean, let me tell you, it's fun, nice to have nice clothes, and it's nice to have a cool phone, and it's nice to have. But those things are nice to have. They don't change whether you're okay or not. That's something that Sylvester McMonkey McBean is trying to sell you. Yes.
Do you know who the Beverly Hills Rat is and like the Beverly Hills Princess?
No, but tell me who it is.
They spend like $10,000 a day.
Do they really?
Yeah, like they live in Beverly Hills and they think they're like all that and stuff, and they.
That was so well said. They think they're like, oh, that with the hands. That was all that. That was so cool.
And they like go into Gucci and then they make them shut down the store, and they buy like a lot of stuff, and they went on Dr. Phil, and they went on Dr. Phil, and and then Dr. Phil interviewed them and said that like you don't like need to buy stuff to like seem so great or something.
Yeah.
We wanted to buy like a $200,000 car for the first car.
Yeah, and like one of them did like the Beverly Hills Rat like didn't even have her driver's license and wanted a car.
She wanted a car.
I love
She wanted like a
So the Sneetches, this
Dr. Phil is a beast.
Sylvester McMonkey McBean starts putting on stars and taking off stars and taking off stars and putting on stars, and the Sneetches can't tell anybody who's who. Pretty soon. So let's see. Ready? Here's what happens.
Yeah.
So we have two different meanings of this story, right? One is this wonderful story about racism, and the other is a wonderful story about somebody trying to sell you okay. You're okay. Sell you inclusion, right? Then, when every last cent of their money was spent, see him in his car with all his money. Oh, I'm sorry. Great. When every last cent of their money was spent, the fix-it-up chappie packed up, and he went. And he laughed as he drove in his car on the beach. They never will learn. Nope, you can't teach a Sneetch. You can't teach a Sneetch. But McBean was quite wrong. I'm happy to say that the Sneetches got really quite smart on that day. That day they decided that Sneetches are Sneetches, and no kind of Sneetches is best on the beaches. That day all the Sneetches forgot about stars, and whether they had one or not upon theirs. And what do you see at the end?
They're really
You're right, shaking their hand.
Because
Can they just remember, like there's your
at the start, like
Yeah, there's a green person.
Oh, that's green
What if there's
fish.
one person who just like get out of the
one with a star
Look on that.
is shaking hands with one without a star, and the fish in the corner is really happy.
Yeah, they have a book on that.
So what did they learn at the end?
Fish, red fish.
What did they learn at the end? What did they learn at the end? We had two different meanings of the story. Let's see if we can get each one of them. What did they learn at the end? Yes, please. Yeah.
That it doesn't matter if you have a star or not. You're all the same.
We're really all the same, stars or no stars. Or there's more of us that's the same that's not the same. Right? Yeah, please.
Sylvester,
McMonkey McBean.
yeah, is smart because he got really rich.
How did he get rich?
By tricking everyone into buying his products.
Yeah, but that's smart.
He got smart by convincing people that they weren't okay the way they were.
Yeah, that's smart.
And that he could make them better simply by putting them through a machine and gluing a star to their belly or removing the star from their belly.
So you
You don't need a star to make you special, to be a star, right? That's not what makes you special. It's not what makes you special, right? But he convinced them that if they would only pay him the money, he would make them okay. He would make them special. And he used their competition to get himself really, 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 really
rich.
Right? So we had two meanings of the story. On the second meaning of the story, he exploited them. He used their competition to get himself really, really rich. Right? In the first part of this story, sometimes people can exploit people's prejudices to get rich too. And that's what he did as well. So who in the end was happy? He was happy because he walked away.
everyone was happy.
But let me ask you, so the Sneetches lost all their money, right?
They're poor.
So they're not happy.
Are they not happy?
No, they're very happy.
Or did they buy something with all that money?
They bought friendship.
No, they bought themselves
Equality.
a machine that
They
they took
bought-
everything off and on.
No, they didn't
bought
buy the
equality.
machine.
They bought equality.
What did they buy themselves in the end? What did they gain?
Friendship.
Okay.
What did they learn?
They learn that it doesn't matter if you have a star or not, that you're still the same and it's not okay to treat
Right.
someone not.
Don't judge me by the star that's either on my belly or not. Judge me by what?
Who I am.
Personality.
Who I am, what I am. Don't judge me. Don't exclude me. Don't make me, or on the other hand, don't make me, I'm not allowed to feel like I'm superior just because I have a star. Right? Can I ask you, that story about those kids, Beverly Hills?
Brad and Brit's.
What happens to people like that? What do you think is the end of the story?
They lose all their money and get broke.
Yes, Shayna.
No, I don't. What happens? Do you think they end up happy?
No.
What happens? Yeah.
They end up on really cool reality TV.
Yeah, that's probably true. But are they happy?
No.
People on reality TV shows tend not to be real happy. That's what makes it reality, right? Why don't they end up happy if they can have all that stuff?
Because they want more.
Why doesn't the stuff make them happy?
Because they lose all their money for the real
I would like to
stuff
have
they
a
need
new
to
car.
buy.
That would make me a little
They
happier.
want more, but they already bought it.
Why are they crazy? You're right. I
They
mean,
have an obsession.
because at a certain point, what are they going to discover? And it's going to hurt when they discover it.
That money is not everything.
They don't have
That's not going to make them. That's not going to give them the feeling they're seeking. The feeling you're seeking doesn't come from the stuff you have. The feeling you're seeking doesn't come from having a star on your belly. The feeling you're seeking comes from having friendships, having accomplishments, having things that matter to you in the world, but not stars on your belly. So how many of you have stars on your... No, don't do that.
Me.
All right, hope you enjoyed the story today. Thank you for
What do we
listening.
say, ladies and gentlemen?
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a rest of the good day. It's supposed to start raining again tomorrow, so good luck.
What?